Okay, welcome back to T2's Book Club. Today I want to talk about 11/22/63, and just because it's fresh on my mind, I actually haven't finished the book yet. It's still at work, so I don't have it with me to hold up, but I just got past the part where he saves Kennedy, and he's being questioned by the FBI, I think. So I was going to do the revival first, but I'm just kind of blown away by this book, and I really wanted to watch the TV series again because I saw the TV series first. It's really good. It's got James Franco in it, and then I got the book. Just read the book mostly, and I was like, well, I'm gonna rewatch the TV show and see what the differences are, like the way with Game of Thrones. And I'm kind of like flabbergasted. It's like a real mind fuck. Before I get into talk about what the book's about, well, let me tell you what the book's about first. If you don't know what it's about, if you haven't seen the TV show or anything, this guy Al has a diner. In the back of his diner, in the storage room, there's a portal. In the book, it's 1958. In the TV show, it's 1960. I think they cut it back 2 years to make it shorter because it's a miniseries. So he tells this guy, Jake Epping, that he's been trying to save John F. Kennedy from being assassinated because that's how this portal works. If you go in it, you can change stuff, but if you go back in it again, it resets everything to the way it was. So once you save Kennedy or whatever you want to do to change history, you can't go back ever again, or it's going to reset. So he does all this stuff to convince him. He shows him it's true, and there's a lot of differences, like from the TV show. Let me see here. Besides it being 1958 and 1960, the rabbit hole in the book is kind of like in the back alley, and there's this sign that says there's a gas leak or something under construction or something that kind of keeps people from going near it. But there's this one guy who's like a drunk, and he has this yellow card in his head. They call him the yellow card man because they don't know what he is, but he's like, he knows something's up when anybody goes through this time portal, and he tells them you're not supposed to be here. And he always, like in the book, he asks him for like 50 cents or something to get some booze, and that's why he gives him some money to give him. But in the TV show, he doesn't do that. This is more like a weird, kind of like in Fallout, the mysterious stranger. He's kind of like that. And in the book, he went, see, Jake, he changes his name to George Amberson. So he's Jake Epping, and he's George Amberson when he's in the past. That's like his fictional name. He goes back and does some things to like test out to see if it'll work, and he goes back 3 times. The second time his card is yellow, and the third time his card is black, and he's dead where he slit his own throat. None of that's in the TV show at all. And in the TV show, he goes back and he has all these like baseball and boxing stats where he can gamble on stuff to get money, to like keep them in money while he's there for the 5 years and 3 years of the TV show. The yellow card man is in the road when he gets done at the first gambling thing, and he like almost hits him. And then like later on, there's this scene where he's following this guy George de Mohrenschildt, who's like a friend of Lee Harvey Oswald's. That the CIA probably put him up to like talking Oswald into shooting Kennedy. And he follows him to this JFK rally when he's still a senator, and then he like lies and says he was a guest of his, and then like the police chase him into this room, into the like basement, and he gets attacked by bugs and stuff because the past always wants to push back if you're trying to change something. And like he follows him to this restaurant, and the chandelier almost falls on his head. None of that's in the book at all. The Mohrenschildt, he doesn't even see Mohrenschildt until he's watching Lee Harvey Oswald's house, and then he shows up and gives him gifts and stuff. So this is all just like, it's blowing my mind because it's weird. He also has this knife that has Vietnam on it. It says 1961 and 1973, but like it's 1963 is when they kill Kennedy, and he hasn't even become president. Yeah, he's president, but the Vietnam hasn't even been raised up as an issue yet in 63. So how is Vietnam starting in 1961? That don't make any sense. So if you don't know anything about what's going on, this is all like random shit to you probably don't understand, but like so that's the kind of stuff I don't understand. But then you got like this starts out where he's teaching this adult writing class to this guy. He's kind of like he had brain damage when he was a kid because his dad murdered his whole family, and he wrote this story about it, and then it caused George Emerson, Jake Epping, whatever, to like save him in the past. That's one of his tests to see if he could change the past, was if he could save this guy from his dad murdering his whole family. And the first time, the past pushed back, and it fucked him up pretty bad. But then he knew how to go around it, and he saved him. But in the book, he lives in Derry, Maine, which is where a lot of Stephen King stuff happens. But in the TV show, he lived in Kentucky. Because in the book, see, this is how it's so much of a mindfuck. It kind of relates things back to the It book with the clown. You know, It? Because this is how Stephen King does shit. He he claims territory. Like in the Dark Tower book, he kind of made 9/11 and the Twin Towers and Hammersholt Plaza in New York all kind of part of his Dark Tower universe. And this book kind of connects the It book, because Derry, Maine, I guess is where it happens at, right? And there's some other stories from his that are in Derry, Maine. I think Needful Things and stuff. And there's this part where he's like watching these two teenagers do this Lindy dance, a Lindy hop, called Hell's a Poppin' version of it or something. I looked that up on YouTube. It's pretty interesting. It kind of reminds me of this porn thing called Nudes a Poppin'. That famous porn star that looks like a fucking troll. What's his name? He hosted. He was on like one of those court shows. I don't know. Anyway, just the name of it kind of threw me off. But so he's talking about in Derry, Maine. There's this building. I think it's from It, that just gave him this weird vibe, and it was spooky, and then like he could sense ghosts there or some kind of evil presence. And then he talks about Dallas, Texas being similar to Derry, and how everything in the past, it all kind of comes back around on itself. Like in the fucking Dark Tower books, he says life is a wheel, or Ka is a wheel, and it turns back on itself or something. It all comes around, and it kind of resonates and harmonizes with itself. There's a lot of these things in the book called harmonics that, like, he'll make a bet with this guy Chaz Fratty, I think was his name was, and then he went to Dallas, completely different from Maine. It's across the whole country. And there's another guy, his name is Fratty. He's got this similar fucking daughter that works the front counter, and she says stuff similarly the way she says stuff. And it's like Dallas, Derry, they both have a double consonant dividing the syllables, and there's like all these word connections, and it's like, then he says the Texas School Book Depository had that same kind of weird sense to it, the way the building where the It clown, I guess, was at in It. I haven't read it yet, but I need to, because now it's going to blow my mind even more. So he's like saying how these two cities have similarities, these two buildings have this both same evil presence in it and stuff, and it's like really freaky. So anyway, if you change it from Derry to Kentucky, then there's really, you get rid of this whole resonance thing in the TV show that kind of gets around that. Also in the TV show, he gets a 57 Chevy. In the book, he gets a Sunliner, whatever that is, different car. And in the TV show, he calls his dad, because he was like, this guy Al was telling him how the past pushes back and it doesn't want to be changed, which is also really interesting. So to test it, he calls his dad. I guess his dad was dead in real life, so he wanted to see if he could talk to his dad. And then this woman just randomly plows into the phone booth he was just in and like flips her car, and she's laying there dead, and he's talking to her, and she says, "You shouldn't be here," like the yellow card man. But that kind of violates the whole principle of the yellow card man, because the only reason he knows stuff is because he's near this rabbit hole portal, and it's kind of like feeding into him or something, supposedly. Which doesn't explain how he's like teleporting everywhere, and he's in Dallas when he's in this bottom part too. The TV show kind of fucked up a little bit, I think, is what I'm saying. But to get back to the time travel thing and how the past pushes back and stuff, that really reminds me of like Final Destination, the way that works. And like sometimes I'll be having a bad day in real life. Like I'll start having bad luck happen to me. And it really reminds me of like how this is like to an extreme. Like people are having wrecks and things are falling on top of you, and elevators will get stuck, and you just can't seem to get any progress done because you'll have a flat tire. If you're trying to like change the past, think about what that would entail. Like if you actually stopped the JFK assassination, if that stopped Vietnam, you would have all those people that died in Vietnam would be alive. And that would be a lot of rewriting history that the past would have to do. If there's some entity to it that's actually controlling it, which kind of makes me think this is kind of in the similar universe as the Langoliers story from 4 Past Midnight. Because that was like, they took a portal like a minute into the past, and like these Langolier things came and eat the past. These big black monsters that are like just mouths, and they eat the past. So like if there's some kind of force like the Langoliers or something that's like fucking with time, it'll be way more work. If you have all these extra people that are alive that are supposed to be dead from Vietnam, let's say, that's way more actors on the board. Like say you're playing Monopoly with 4 people, and all of a sudden you just add 24 new players to the game. It's going to be a fucking weird Monopoly game. There's going to be way more people buying properties and moving around and collecting all the money. You're going to run out of money. It's just going to fuck everything up. Playing 28 player Monopoly, imagine it. Imagine like if you had thousands and thousands of people that are alive that are supposed to be dead, and they're all having kids, and those kids grow up and they have kids, and those kids have kids, and those kids have kids, and all of those people get jobs that are taking those jobs away from the other people that are supposed to have the jobs. So now their whole timeline has shifted, and their whole reality and everything they were going to be, and now they can't be because somebody else is in their spot, and like everything gets moved around. Like it's mind-boggling how much you would change just by, or even if you didn't like save Kennedy, if you did like one little thing like the butterfly effect, you don't know, like the farther in time you go, the more effect it has because there's more changes that are going to occur. And it's just like it gets mind-boggling to an extent you can't really handle it. So then I had like some general questions about how this rabbit hole works, because if it resets every time, right? The thing was, he was buying these hamburgers off this guy. The guy was going into the past, getting cheap beef, and then selling it at a cheap price by today's standards because it was still like a massive profit for him. So like he would go buy some meat, come back to the present and sell it, and then he would go back in and it would reset. So he's buying the same meat he just bought, bringing it back and selling the same meat again, because when you bring stuff to the present, it doesn't like delete itself once you reset. So like he's talking about bringing his girlfriend back with him at the end, but she got killed. And he's thinking about going back and resetting it and trying to do it all right again. But like, let's say for example, you go back into the past, and then somebody else comes through the rabbit hole. Would you just disappear because it would reset? Or would it shoot you back to the present? Or what would happen? Would you still be... Well, you couldn't still be there because it would reset, right? Or would somebody be in there hold it open where it wouldn't? And here's another thing. When he goes through the closet, he can hear the guy talking to him, telling him, like, take one more step. And then he gets right on the verge, and then he's, like, in the past, and he can still hear him, like, far away talking to him. Because, I mean, that would make sense for the first couple of minutes, because it only... If you stay there for, like, 5 years and you come back, it's still only 2 minutes in normal time. So there's a time dilation effect. But until you're there for 2 minutes, it wouldn't be that much of an effect because time wouldn't be stretching, right? Because like if he was there, let's say he stayed there for 2 years and he went back to the portal and like yelled through it, would the guy hear him? Because it would just be like within that 2 minute time span for the guy in the present. But for him, he would be hearing him talking like a sentence that would last equivalent of like I don't know, a month or something. So it would be super stretched out and he wouldn't be able to understand him. It just blows your mind. There's a little bit of artistic license, I think, went into it because yeah, so the way the time resists change, the past doesn't want to be changed. That's like when I have one of those bad luck days like I'm talking about. And I start having bad luck and like I don't want to leave the house because everything goes wrong, and it's just like one of those days. So it's like it kind of prevents you from wanting to make changes because you don't want to do anything, because you just want to like stay home and not do anything. So I can relate to that. One of the interesting quotes from the book is that the long distance phone calls was the only thing in the past that actually cost more money than the present, because it's telecommunications are so easy now. And it also, in the TV show, it kind of made it look like everybody is on their phones nowadays and they're not really interesting, and the present is really shitty. And like saving Kennedy could have made it less shitty. Because you think about that, like the greatest generation or whatever, the people that died in Vietnam, if they hadn't have died, I mean, if they were the best of us and the bravest of us and they lived and they carried on their ideals of bravery and like being good people to their children, then they would be, today's generation would be better, I suppose. Because now the only people that had kids were the people that like avoided the war, or like they were, I don't know, like cowardly or whatever, and they stayed home, or they figured out a way out of it, or I don't know. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Another one was another quote from the book was how life turns on a dime. And there's like all these different things that happen in the book where his life just kind of shifts really quickly, and things can go wrong or they can go right. And that kind of reminded me of like musicians and comedians, because like when you're doing a live performance, there's a point at the beginning of it when the audience is, they're hopeful, like you could fuck up and it could go real bad real quick. But if you do the right thing and you do like whatever you're supposed to do, like sing a song or like do a comedy set, and it goes right, then you're a hero. It's either going to be humiliating or heroic, and it's all about that first fucking moment, whether you fuck up or not. And it's kind of like you're on a knife's edge. Compare that to somebody who like writes a book or paints a picture or something, or you're uploading a YouTube video you get to edit before you put it out there. That's way different than like a live performance. The way life turns on a dime. But, so yeah, pretty much, to sum up the book, you got this first part, an act where he's talking to Al. Al's telling him how the rabbit hole works in the time portal. And then you got a part where he goes to save Harry's family from his dad who murdered everybody with a hammer. And then Al dies, and he goes back and he's trying to save JFK. So he's got 5 years to fill while he's waiting on, like he's just kind of like stalking Lee Harvey Oswald and like studying him. He gets all these different apartments because he keeps moving, and he follows this Mower Schilt guy and this other guy, George Bohey or something like that. And so during all that time, he kind of gets bored with it, and he goes and teaches at this school. There's this whole act where it's like he's having this relationship with these kids, and he's like, this one guy is a really good actor, and he like encourages him, and then like he finds this girl who ends up falling in love with her, and like her husband was really bad to her, and like they call it like putting a broom in the bed, where he wouldn't he wasn't honest with her or something. Like he had this broom, he literally had a broom in the bed that she couldn't cross it or something like that. And that was like him having a broom in the bed was him not telling her everything, which he can't, because if he tells her that he's from the future and all this stuff, that's going to like influence her, and that's going to fuck with the past, and then they're going to be in danger because the past is going to be changed. And if you just, the slightest thing like letting somebody know you're from the future is going to change the past. So he ends up dust telling her, and it's not really that big of a deal. Only if she gets killed, because, well, I guess it is kind of a big deal. But her husband comes back and like slashes her face open and cuts her. So then they do this Lindy Hop thing. They have this big variety show, and they like raise a benefit to like get her plastic surgery. But in the meantime, he's thinking like, oh, I could just take her back to my time and get her like laser surgery, and like make this way better than like these shitty hospitals in the past where, I don't know, it's like really bad conditions. The doctors are all smoking and stuff. And so then the thing where he's gambling and he keeps winning too much, and the whole synergizing thing, he sends a group of guys. They're all mobbed up, and they send a bunch of guys to like beat the shit out of him and like break his arm and fuck him up real bad. So he almost can't save Kennedy because he's so fucked up. There's also a lot of fucking in the book where they keep going to these cabins and because they can't have sex normally because people would see his car parked outside and everybody's prudes in the 50s. So like there's this whole, most of the book is not really about JFK. It's about him and this relationship with this girl and this school and some of the teachers he makes good friends with and stuff. But that's a really fucking good book, I gotta say. A lot of it's like back and forth where he's doing kind of Kennedy stuff at the same time. But I don't know. There's so much that happens in it. I can't really go through all of it. Yeah, it's just crazy how it all relates to like the Dark Tower and it and the Langoliers and I don't know. Yeah, check it out.